Welcome to Inside the Sermon. We're the place you come to really break down powerful messages, get into the thinking behind them, the psychology, even the funny bits sometimes. You're here for that deep analysis. And today we're getting into a really dynamic concept from Jimmy Lloyd, this idea of being a joy monger.
Yeah, it's a fascinating term.
Our goal today really is to unpack the plan Jimmy Lloyd lays out for, well, for actively changing how we approach happiness, not just finding it, but actually distributing joy.
Right. It's a framework that mixes things up, a bit of ancient thinking, some very current social observations.
And it all kicks off with this really simple but kind of revealing little test about perspective involving an imaginary Sharpie.
It does. And what's really striking about the material Jimmy Lloyd presented is how seriously he takes joy. It's not presented as, just a nice feeling. He frames it as a real commitment, a strategic choice almost.
Yeah.
He really challenges you, the listener, to see how your basic orientation, how you look at the world is, well, it's the key thing, determines whether you find meaning or just sort of slide into cynicism. Okay, so we're going to dig into two big ideas today, drawn straight from Jimmy Lloyd. First, how do we actually do that shift? How do we consciously, move from being self-focused to being empathetic and maybe back again? He calls it the art of knowing when to reverse the E.
Reverse the E. Okay.
And second, and this is maybe the tougher part, we have to look at what happens when we let our own comfort, our own happiness, kind of push aside compassion, real active compassion. And Jimmy Lloyd, well, he doesn't hold back. He connects things you might not expect, like post-war Germany, ancient Hebrew poetry, even the TSA's Instagram accounts. Quite a mix.
Wow, okay, quite a range. Let's start with that perspective thing then, the E test.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack this. It's the opening exercise he uses, and it's designed to show you where you stand right now.
Yeah.
If you're listening, maybe try this yourself. Jimmy Lloyd asks you to imagine your index finger is a Sharpie marker. And then you're supposed to write a capital letter E right on your forehead. Just trace it there.
Right. Just imagine doing it.
So when people do this, Jimmy Lloyd points out there are basically two ways it goes down. And the difference tells you something about your default mental state. The first way, you write the E so you could read it. Like if you looked in a mirror, the three lines face inwards towards your nose.
Okay. Self-readable.
Exactly. The second way, you read it so someone looking at you could read it correctly, which means from your point of view, you're writing it backwards.
Okay. Other readable.
Right.
And this little test, it's actually used in behavioral psychology sometimes, like a quick snapshot of your cognitive default. Jimmy Lloyd uses it brilliantly. If you did the self-readable E, you probably tend to process things through a more internal, kind of individual filter, your own viewpoint, your feelings, what you need that's often front and center.
Makes sense.
But if you wrote the E so someone else could read it, chances are you operate more from an external perspective. Always kind of wondering, how am I coming across? What's that person thinking? Am I hitting the mark for them?
Right, seeking that validation.
Exactly. And that takes up a lot of mental energy, constantly monitoring that external view.
That distinction alone is pretty interesting, but Jimmy Lloyd hits us with a warning straight away, doesn't he? He says too much of either perspective. Well, he calls it very toxic, dangerous even.
Yeah, it's not about one being good and the other bad.
If you're totally self-absorbed, always writing the E for yourself, you end up isolated, right? You can't really connect. But if you're always writing it for others, obsessed with how you look, you lose yourself.
Completely. You never set firm boundaries. You don't have your own solid sense of worth. You become like a psychological chameleon just trying to blend in everywhere, and that's exhausting.
So exhausting.
And that's the direct link Jimmy Lloyd makes to joy. If you want sustained joy, it's not about picking one E direction and sticking with it. It's about being flexible. Joy, in his view, becomes the art of knowing when to reverse the E.
Okay. The flexibility.
Yeah, you need that internal perspective sometimes. For conviction, for boundaries, for knowing who you are. But if you never reverse the E, if you can't consciously try to see things from someone else's viewpoint,
You fail at empathy.
you fail at empathy, exactly. And active compassion becomes impossible. And later on, Jimmy Lloyd shows how that failure, that inability to reverse the E, is exactly what lets cynicism and apathy just take over.
It's a really useful way to think about it. Perspective isn't just who you are, it's something you do. An action.
Precisely. It makes you ask, am I stuck looking inward right now? Or am I just completely lost in what everyone else thinks?
Okay, so that dynamic perspective shift, That brings us right to the title he uses for the whole message, Joy Mongers.
Right. And here, Jimmy Lloyd has to deal with the word itself, doesn't he? Monger.
Mm,
It immediately sounds, well, bad.
totally. Our brains just go there. Fearmonger, warmonger, drugmonger. It's almost always linked with something negative, something dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Illicit, almost.
Jimmy Lloyd even shared that funny, maybe slightly awkward story about his wife. Her first thought hearing monger was whoremonger. That really old, loaded definition. The word just carries all this negative baggage.
It really does. But Jimmy Lloyd pushes back on that. He asks us to reclaim the word by looking at its simple, literal meaning.
Which is?
A monger is just a dealer, trader, or distributor. That's it. It's purely about the transaction, the distribution. There's no built-in judgment about what's being distributed.
Okay. So it's neutral in its core meaning.
Exactly. And that's the pivot. Jimmy Lloyd says, let's make a conscious choice here. Let's decide to become dealers and distributors of joy.
Okay. So joy becomes the product we're dealing in.
Yes. We actively choose to make joy our currency. The thing that, as he puts it, saturates everybody around us.
That really changes how you think about finding joy, doesn't it?
Completely. It shifts it from something passive, like waiting around for perfect circumstances to make you feel happy, to something really active, a posture.
If you're intentionally distributing joy, you can't just wait for everything to be perfect.
You can't. You have to engage with the world exactly as it is, messy and imperfect, and distribute anyway. And that, Jimmy Lloyd argues, takes real courage and presence.
Presence. Okay. So if we're distributing joy, where do we find it? Where's the supply? Jimmy Lloyd seems to say it's everywhere, but maybe not where we usually look, not in those perfect conditions we wait for.
Right. He argues it often shows up in the perfectly absurd conditions, which brings us to that great story from the Publix grocery store.
Oh, yeah, the guy in the checkout line.
And it wasn't just, a guy in a weird outfit. Jimmy Lloyd describes it with such specific detail. It's like a masterclass in not caring about the external E.
Okay, break down the look for us again. It was pretty specific.
Okay, so picture this. Shorts, but not just any shorts. Shorts from, 1984. Probably shiny, probably short.
High-waisted, maybe.
Could be. Then, a clashing neon tank top. Okay. Then, black dress socks, pulled up.
The dress socks, that's the killer detail.
It's the symbolic mixing of worlds, right? And then, fluorescent sneakers. And the final touch, a bowling bag. He's carrying a bowling bag through Publix.
It's magnificent chaos.
It really is. And Jimmy Lloyd points out, this guy wasn't shuffling around looking embarrassed. He was beaming. Just radiating confidence, totally at peace, completely unconcerned about judgment.
He was living purely in his internal E, and it was working.
Totally. And the lesson Jimmy Lloyd pulls from this glorious absurdity is actually pretty profound social commentary. He says, apparently there are less rules than any of us ever thought there were.
That's good.
We put all these artificial rules on ourselves, don't we? How we have to look or act or what we need to achieve before we're allowed to feel joyful.
Yeah, we police ourselves.
And this guy, in his dress socks and confidence, just blew all that up. He proved that confidence mixed with a healthy dose of absurdity can unlock joy right now. You don't need permission.
So dress socks and confidence, that's the key.
Maybe. It directly counters that problem of delaying joy, right? Jimmy Lloyd mentioned hearing someone say, I can't wait until the Christmas season because it's the only time I actually experience joy throughout the year.
Oh, wow. That's really sad when you think about it.
It is. If your joy depends on, 2 weeks of mandatory cheer in December, what about the other 50 weeks? You're living in this state of waiting for perfect conditions that almost never show up.
And Jimmy Lloyd's explanation for why we do that, why we miss the joy that's right here, it's because we're not mentally present, right?
Exactly. We're off somewhere else in our heads. Either stuck in the past, regrets, hurts, what went wrong, or we're constantly projecting into the future, worrying, planning, hoping that will finally be the time everything's okay.
And that focus on past or future just blocks out the right now.
Completely. Joy, if it's something we distribute, needs us to be present. And that's actually hard mental work. It's a discipline.
So how do we practice that presence? Jimmy Lloyd uses these really weird, wonderful details to kind of snap us out of it, right?
Yeah, he uses the absurd to force us to notice the present. Like the 2025 spider study.
Right. Spiders getting bigger.
Bigger, faster, and needing less food,
Mm.
all because of climate change, which is, objectively terrifying future stuff.
Definitely.
But Jimmy Lloyd reframes it. Instead of just focusing on the doom, he finds the cosmic comedy in it. He said the apocalypse is coming with giant spiders wearing sunscreen.
Ah, that's brilliant.
It is. Joy, in that context, isn't denying the problem. It's choosing to laugh at the sheer mind-bending absurdity of it all instead of letting the fear paralyze you.
It's finding the weird humor in the scary.
Exactly. And then there's the first date thing. That survey finding.
Oh yeah, the dogs on dates.
1 out of 4 people, 25%,
Yeah,
take their dog on a first date. Jimmy Lloyd called the dog a furry accountability partner.
that's perfect.
And again, it seems trivial, right? But the insight is that joy isn't always deep and philosophical. Sometimes it's just noticing the strange, slightly awkward, wonderful things humans do, like using your golden retriever as a wingman,
Or wing dog.
wing dog, and just choosing to acknowledge, wow, the world is weird and wonderful. It just takes noticing, appreciating the everyday oddness.
Which leads perfectly into my favorite example he gave, the snack box.
Ah, yes. Renaming the glove compartment.
So the story was a colleague's little daughter sees the glove compartment and asks why they keep books in the snack box.
Because presumably that's where snacks sometimes live.
Exactly. And the dad starts to correct her, no, honey, it's called a glove compartment. But then he stops himself. He thinks, wait a minute.
Why not call it the snack box?
Right. And the insight Jimmy Lloyd pulls from that is powerful. He says joy involves having permission to rename it and to reclaim it. If snack box is actually a better, more joyful, more accurate name for that space, why stick with the old official name just because everyone else does?
It's like a tiny act of rebellion, reclaiming the ordinary by giving it a better name, finding the sacred in the mundane just by changing the label.
Exactly. Language matters.
Okay, but if we're going to be serious about this Joy Monger thing, we need to know what we're up against. What's the real enemy? And Jimmy Lloyd really challenges a basic assumption here. He asks, what's the true opposite of joy?
And most people, myself included probably, would immediately say sadness or despair, depression maybe.
Right. Those seem like the obvious answers. But Jimmy Lloyd is really clear. The opposite of joy is not sadness.
Okay.
Sadness, he argues, is just part of being human. It's inevitable, sometimes necessary. The real opposite, he says, is cynicism.
Cynicism. Huh. Okay, explain that.
Well, this is where things get pretty critical in his message. Jimmy Lloyd defines cynicism as fundamentally easy. He calls it lazy faith.
Lazy faith.
Wow. Think about it. Cynicism is safe, isn't it? It doesn't risk anything. If you just decide ahead of time that people are awful or the system's rigged or nothing really matters anyway.
You've protected yourself from disappointment.
Exactly. You've inoculated yourself. You
Oh,
don't
yeah.
have to try. You don't have to risk failing. You don't have to invest emotionally. You get to just disengage.
Yeah, you can just sit back and judge.
Right. Cynicism, he says, never builds anything. It only mocks and smirks. It stays safely on the sidelines, feeling superior. But real joy, the kind of Joy Monger distributes, requires getting involved, requires vulnerability.
Which takes work.
It takes courage, Jimmy Lloyd says, and real work. It means showing up even when things are messy, even when reversing that E feels really, really hard.
And he uses some powerful historical examples to show what happens when cynicism teams up with comfort, when apathy takes root.
Yeah, this isn't just abstract theory for him. He uses history to show how wanting to protect our own happiness can actually lead to moral blindness. It's pretty chilling.
The first story was Gertrude, right? The teacher in 1930s Germany.
Yes. And Jimmy Lloyd is careful to point out, her initial reasons weren't about hate. She joined the Nazi women's group because she was just tired. Tired of the humiliation Germany felt after World War I, tired of instability. She just wanted things to feel proud and normal again. She was seeking comfort.
Just wanting things to be okay again.
Exactly. But that desire for comfort became her blind spot. Jimmy Lloyd describes how she rationalized things away. Jewish colleagues disappear from work. Oh, that's just politics. I don't get involved.
Wow.
Jewish students stopped showing up to her class. Oh, they must have moved. She built these layers of denial to protect that little bit of stability she finally felt she had.
Protecting her own fragile happiness.
Yes. And the quote Jimmy Lloyd uses from her later interview is just devastating. She said, "We simply didn't ask questions. We were finally happy again, and we didn't want to lose that."
Oh my goodness.
The tragedy wasn't driven by some burning hatred initially. It was fueled by fear. Fear of losing that small comfort. The second her comfort became more important than her compassion, her moral compass just broke.
Wow. That really sets up the second story, which is even more visceral, isn't it? The church by the railroad tracks.
Yeah. Also, 1930s Germany. This church happened to be located right near the railway lines used to transport Jewish prisoners to the concentration camps.
So every Sunday.
Every Sunday, while they're inside singing hymn songs about love, hope, God's light. The trains would go past outside their windows, and they could hear it.
Hear what?
The sounds for the train cars. Jimmy Lloyd described it as cries, frantic pounding on the metal walls, people pleading for help right outside their church.
Unimaginable.
And their response. Jimmy Lloyd's description is just haunting. They couldn't stop the trains, obviously, but they could control their own immediate environment. So they sang louder. They used their hymns, their collective voices, to actively drown out the sounds of human suffering happening right there. Active self-deception.
Singing louder to avoid hearing the truth.
Yes, and the long-term impact. He quotes one of the members reflecting decades later. To this day, when I hear the sound of a train go by, I can still hear the cries.
Wow, the psychological scar of that choice.
That's the cost, Jimmy Lloyd argues, of trading empathy for apathy. And it always starts, he says, with that simple division, creating an us and a them.
And Jimmy Lloyd draws a direct line from that historical us and them to what's happening now, doesn't he, in our culture?
Absolutely. He says we might not be building literal concentration camps, but we are definitely building categories, aggressive ones, conservative, liberal, Magier, woke, vaxxer, anti-vaxxer. Whatever the labels are, we're sorting ourselves into these tribes.
And defining ourselves by who we're not.
Exactly. And the crucial psychological moment, Jimmy Lloyd warns, is right here. The moment we say them, we stop listening. As soon as someone has labeled them, empathy shuts down. Conversation stops.
And it's often fueled by fear, isn't it? That irrational, cynical fear that they are a threat.
Yes.
Yeah.
That they are coming to take this away from us. Whether this is our money, our country, our values, our comfort. That fear makes us see them as an enemy we have to defend against, even if it means abandoning compassion.
We build a wall around our happiness, and it ends up trapping our empathy inside.
Beautifully put. And the modern version of singing louder. Jimmy Lloyd says, we're posting louder, arguing louder, just to drown out the noise of complexity, the noise of different perspectives, the noise of discomfort.
But true joy, the Joy Monger kind.
It keeps walking in the mess, he says. It doesn't retreat. It doesn't try to drown out the cries. It engages.
Okay, so if joy means walking into the mess, engaging with the difficult stuff, we need a different way to think about suffering, about fragility, the very things cynicism points to as proof that it's all pointless.
Exactly. And this is where Jimmy Lloyd brings in some ancient wisdom, specifically from the Hebrew text Ecclesiastes.
The meaningless book.
Right. Chapter 1, verse 2. It sounds like the ultimate downer.
Meaningless, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Seems like the perfect fuel for cynicism.
Yeah, like, see, even the Bible says it's all pointless.
But Jimmy Lloyd does the crucial work of looking at the original Hebrew word there. The word translated as meaningless is havel, H-E-V-E-L.
Havel, okay. And havel, he explains, doesn't really mean pointless or futile in the way we use meaningless today. It literally means vapor or mist.
Vapor, like steam.
Yeah, or fog.
Yeah.
Think about mist. You can feel it, right? It's real. But try to grab hold of it.
It's right through your fingers.
Exactly. So the writer of Ecclesiastes wasn't saying life has no purpose. He was saying life is havel. It's vapor. It's fundamentally transient, fragile, impossible to pin down or control. He wasn't depressed. He was just being brutally honest about the nature of reality. Stop pretending it's solid when it's mist.
Okay, that changes the whole feel of it. It's not despair, it's realism.
Radical realism. And accepting that fragility, that havel, is actually incredibly freeing. It pulls the rug out from under cynicism. If everything is temporary, if it's all mist, why waste the precious little time you have being cynical or retreating into comfort?
Right. Why waste the vapor arguing?
Exactly. Which leads to Jimmy Lloyd's hilariously practical advice for dealing with those relentlessly negative people we all know.
Oh, yeah, the complainers.
The person complaining about, the traffic or the weather or some tiny little inconvenience. Jimmy Lloyd says, don't argue. Don't try to cheer them up. Agree with them. And then escalate using the havel truth.
How does that work?
You interrupt their complaint about, say, the coffee being cold, and you say, oh, no, my friend, it's way worse than that. We're all going to die.
Huh. That's bold.
It is.
Yeah.
But it instantly resets the scale, doesn't it? It forces perspective. If this life is just vapor, if death is the ultimate reality, why are we focusing our energy on lukewarm coffee? It snaps you back to the present, to what actually matters.
It's absurd, but it makes a point.
And speaking of the wonderfully absurd vapor of life, Jimmy Lloyd throws in that amazing fact about Viagra for flowers.
Oh my gosh, yes, I forgot about that.
Discovered back in the 90s, apparently. The little blue pill, if you crush it up and put it in the water with cut flowers,
They stand up straighter.
than bolt upright, and they live, on average, about a week longer.
That is genuinely bizarre and wonderful.
And Jimmy Lloyd uses it as this perfect little symbol of joy. Joy is found in that absurd, that wonder and mystery of it all. It doesn't make sense. It's unexpected. And it reminds us that even in the face of decay, of Hull, there's still unexpected beauty, temporary life, weird resilience.
Finding wonder in the weirdness.
Exactly. And that ability to see wonder even amidst fragility, that's what allows for the ultimate reframing of pain. Jimmy Lloyd points to Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2.
Oh, okay.
Where it says, "For the joy set before him, he endured the cross."
Right. Jesus enduring the cross.
But Jimmy Lloyd is really precise here. He stresses the joy wasn't in the suffering itself. There was no joy in the nails, the beating, the physical agony. That was just horror.
Okay, so where was the joy?
The joy was set before him. It was the outcome, the future reality he was focused on, the possibility of redemption, of hope. The possibility, as Jimmy Lloyd puts it, of the listener being right here, right now. That future joy is what made enduring the present horror possible.
Ah, so it's not finding joy in pain, but finding a purpose beyond the pain.
Precisely. Joy doesn't erase the hurt. It doesn't pretend the hovel, the fragility isn't real. It reframes it. Joy is that active choice to see the potential outcome, the sacredness, the holiness, even in the middle of the ordinary, messy, painful present, and choosing to endure and distribute because of what's possible.
Reframing the pain by focusing on the purpose. That's powerful. Okay, so that brings us to the final stretch, really. How does this Joy Monger idea play out in everyday life? Finding the sacred, as you said, not in some huge spiritual event, but in the really ordinary stuff, maybe even the boring stuff.
Yes, and honestly, there's no better example of fighting off apathy with joy than Jimmy Lloyd's hilarious appreciation for
Right.
the TSA Instagram account.
The Transportation Security Administration.
The very idea
Yeah.
that our tax dollars are paying someone to run a government Instagram account about airport security.
Yeah.
And to make it funny. Jimmy Lloyd finds that inherently joyful. It's beautifully mundane and absurd.
It really is. And it speaks to that Joy Monger courage, doesn't it? Imagine being the person running that account. Potentially one of the most bureaucratic, rule-bound, maybe even annoying jobs.
Dealing with grumpy travelers, confiscated items.
Exactly. And yet, that person, let's call them Steven, like Jimmy Lloyd suggested, actively chooses to distribute joy through social media, making something necessary also unexpectedly light.
Mm-hmm. And Jimmy Lloyd shares some specific examples of their genius, right? Like when people ask genuinely weird questions about what they can bring on a plane.
Yeah, like the kettlebell. Someone asked if they could bring a kettlebell in their carry-on.
Which is, a dense lump of metal. Probably looks weird on an X-ray.
And TSA's reply was great. Something like, although weights aren't specifically prohibited, we recommend transporting your kettlebell in checked bags. Just subtly hinting at the potential hassle without being alarmist.
It's clever.
Yeah.
Or the cheese grater question, can you bring a cheese grater in your carry-on?
Which seems weirdly dangerous, but okay.
Yeah. Apparently, yes, you can. And the TSA confirms it, just wrapped in this layer of helpful, slightly playful professionalism.
But the best one, the absolute peak of finding joy in the mundane, was the joke about the sign, right?
Oh, the toothpaste sign. Yes. Someone sent a photo of one of those boring signs at security explaining the rules for liquids and gels. 3.4 ounces, you know the drill. Tedious.
Super tedious. And the TSA's response?
Pure gold. They replied something like, that's no Rembrandt of a sign. Glean this info. Just make your Colgate 3.4 ounces or less and carry on. You'll be feeling aquaresh on your flight and at your destination.
Ha! Puns. Art history. Toothpaste brands. It's amazing.
It's a masterclass.
Yeah.
That's an employee refusing to be cynical about a potentially mind-numbing job, choosing instead to distribute a tiny moment of wit and joy. Jimmy Lloyd's point is, if the TSA social media manager can be a joy monger, what's stopping the rest of us?
That's a good point. What's our excuse?
And then Jimmy Lloyd brings it right back home. He grounds this whole philosophy in these really personal, very ordinary family moments, strips away the jokes, the absurdity, to get to the core reward for the joy monger, which is often just simple gratitude.
Like the story about his son, Aiden.
Yeah, Aiden, who is 2 years old at Busch Gardens, just running through one of those water arch things kids love. Not a big life event, just a kid getting wet.
Pretty standard fun.
But his reaction was pure presence. Aiden just stopped mid-splash, clenched his little fist, and yelled, "Woo!" Because right then, in that simple moment, he felt it. This is what life is all about. Unfiltered joy in the ordinary.
Wow. Kids get it sometimes, don't they?
They really do.
Yeah.
Then there was the story about weaning his daughter Kinsley, who was 1, offer a pacifier.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah, hours of crying, parental exhaustion.
Yeah.
The kind of moment where it's easy to just check out, feel resentful, apathetic. But Jimmy Lloyd described holding her on his chest after she finally fell asleep, just feeling her little heartbeat, the rhythm of her breathing, and sitting there for hours just holding her thinking, I never want this to end. He transformed that difficult, ordinary moment into something sacred, something cherished, just by choosing to be fully present in it.
Finding the sacred in the exhaustion.
Exactly. And the last one, the funny, relatable story of his older daughter, Addison, moving back home.
Right. She tried moving out.
Yeah, 22 years old, trying to be independent, paying like $150 rent somewhere,
Mm.
only to come back 3 months later.
Mm.
Why? She missed the unlimited hot water and free snacks.
Huh. The simple things.
The simple, glorious things. And Jimmy Lloyd described that moment, having everyone back under the same roof, the house full, the chaos, and just having this realization, this is it. This fragile, messy, wonderful life I've been given.
It's not about perfection.
Not at all. That's the final takeaway, really. The ultimate Joy Monger realization isn't about achieving some perfect state. It's found right there in those ordinary moments where you have the revelation that I got more than I deserve.
That feeling of gratitude.
That gratitude, that awareness of the unexpected gift of just ordinary life. That's the real commodity we're supposed to be dealing in. That's the joy we monger.
So, quite a journey we've taken here, following Jimmy Lloyd's path. We started with that E on the forehead, figuring out our perspective, that balance between looking inward and seeing outward.
The constant negotiation.
And we ended up finding the sacred in, well, TSA, Instagram posts, and kids running through sprinklers and free snacks.
It's quite the arc.
And the core challenge from Jimmy Lloyd seems to be about making some key decisions, doesn't it? Commitments, really.
Absolutely. He's asking you to decide. Stop singing louder. Stop posting louder. Stop trying to drown out the difficult noise.
Don't retreat into the easy cynicism that just divides everyone into them and us.
Never do that. And commit. Really commit your focus to this moment, this present, messy, howl-filled, vaporous moment right now.
Yeah, be here now.
Which brings us right to that final, really provocative thought. The one that kind of flips cynicism on its head. It takes the very thing cynicism uses as its proof of life's fragility and turns it into the reason for engagement. It's the challenge Jimmy Lloyd leaves us with.
Okay, what is it?
It's that when you feel yourself pulling back, getting judgmental, feeling that cynical chill, use the Havel truth. Use the vapor.
Yeah.
Remind yourself with urgency. Oh, it's so much worse than that. We're all going to die.
Wow, that sounds bleak, but...
But it's not meant to be.
Yeah.
Paradoxically, that ultimate realism isn't supposed to lead to despair. It's supposed to trigger immediate action,
Right.
urgency.
Because time is short. Because it's all vapor.
Exactly. So stop wasting it. Stop retreating. Stop arguing about the small stuff. Use that ultimate fragility to force yourself to stop right now, engage with what's in front of you, be present,
Yeah.
and just notice.
Yeah.
Notice the sacredness, the holiness, the weird, wonderful joy that, according to Jimmy Lloyd, is literally all around you all the time.
If you just have the eyes to see it.
If you choose to see it. And that awareness, that active noticing and distributing, that's what makes all the effort of being a joy monger completely worthwhile.